The Outdoor Journal. Brought to you by Shimano. Geared for performance.
Here's something for you to contemplate while eating your Wheaties. I'm in a land where the farther north you travel, the warmer it gets. A place where July is in the dead of winter and December sees Santa delivering his goodies in Bermuda shorts and sandals. Hi everybody, I'm Angelo Viola. Welcome to this week's Outdoor Journal. If you haven't already guessed, today we're coming to you from the world's largest country island of Australia. We're going to travel up the eastern coast in the state of Queensland and visit two of its World Heritage areas. One, a very well-kept secret called Fraser Island, the world's largest sand island, and the other, very, very well known, the Great Barrier Reef, the world's largest coral reef. You might say we're going to be traveling up, down under. As this planet's smallest continent, both in geography and population, Australia is the most remote landmass this side of the Antarctic. It's made up of 6 states and 2 territories, with 84% of its people living in the southeast and south coasts. However, to the northeast is the state of Queensland, the second largest state and by far the most popular tourist destination in the country. And it's here, just north of Brisbane, the state capital, that you'll find the most unique land formation on Earth, Fraser Island. Usually after flying for almost 20 hours, I just want to kick back for a day or two before venturing out, but not this time. I can't wait to set foot, barefoot that is, on the world's largest sand island. Unlike so many of the other countries in this part of the Western Hemisphere, Australia can boast one of the most efficient public transportation systems found anywhere. Whether it's air, ground, or as in today's case, water, getting from point A to point B is never a problem. Each day, hundreds of tourists make the trek from Hervey Bay, the main ferry terminal in these parts, across the Great Sandy Strait to Kingfisher Bay on the island. As well as having the distinction of being the biggest sandbox on the planet, the dune systems of the Great Sandy region are also believed to be the oldest, dating back more than 30,000 years. Ah, at last, Kingfisher Bay. It's the main public landing here and home to one of the most ecologically friendly luxury hotels I've ever seen, Kingfisher Bay Resort. Complete with professional guides, this place kind of reminds me of Jurassic Park. Sans dinos, of course. Wow, this is definitely another world, folks. I mean, aside from being so isolated from the mainland, and aside from having one of the most diverse ecosystems on the planet, and aside from the most unique flora and fauna found anywhere, this place is literally screaming enchanted forest. Now, World Heritage Area, tell me about that.
World Heritage listed areas, there's around about 440 altogether.
Okay.
You've got 2 categories. You've got those that have been listed because of their natural values and those that have been listed because of their cultural values. And in some cases, you actually get a bit of both. And in Australia, we actually have 11 areas that have been World Heritage listed. Fraser Island is one of them. It was an outstanding example of ongoing significant biological and ecological processes. And secondly, that...
Now, what's that mean in English?
Okay.
My English.
Your English.
I'll translate.
What that really means is there's very unique flora, fauna and landforms here, which are found only in very few places around the world, so it's very unique. In this case, we're talking about coastal dune systems that are the highest in the world, but of course most of the island is vegetated, so most of those dunes have now been stabilised by vegetation, just like you see around the vehicle.
Okay, now when you refer to stabilization, you're talking about growth on top of the sand.
That's correct, yeah.
So this is all stabilized around here.
That's it, yep, that's it.
So when we see just sand dunes, white sand dunes like you'd see in a desert, that's unstabilized.
That's unstabilised. They're still mobile dunes. The wind keeps moving them.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep. Most sand masses in the world are actually desert areas, so you don't have the rainfall that allows for vegetation growth.
Right.
So therefore, you just don't get stabilisation in most dunes. But here we have around about 67 inches a year. So that allows for the growth of plants. And this is a great example through this little cutting here.
Oh yeah, you can see this.
Where we've sort of got the top layer there, which is just the decaying plants. And eventually that will obviously mix together with the sand.
Well, you can see there's a bit of sand in through it.
That's it, yeah. It'll mix together. And of course that's what's providing the nutrient for all of the plants here. So that's how they're able to survive in these.
And it's just on that top little layer, huh?
Yeah. But what eventually will happen is every time it rains, obviously it'll leach a little bit through down into the soil. So it will eventually make it get deeper and deeper.
And this now will not move, obviously. You call this stabilized.
Stabilized, yeah.
So it will not erode or move or...
Yeah.
That is great.
Okay.
Now, something else of interest here that I read in the book, some of the tree species, they actually shed their bark as opposed to leaves, right, in the wintertime?
That's correct. Pretty much.
There's one here, right?
Yep. This is a eucalypt here. This is actually what we call a scribbly gum.
Yeah.
Now that's a typical smooth-barked gum tree or smooth-barked eucalypt that we have in Australia. That tree will actually shed its bark. Okay. So what it does is ensuring an ongoing nutrient supply around the base of the tree to ensure that it will have ongoing nutrient in the future.
Right.
So that's really an adaptation
so the
to those poor
bark
soil.
just decays around the tree.
Yeah, that's correct. Yep.
Consumes itself.
That's it.
Yeah, you can see all the bark is right down on the ground.
That's correct, yeah.
So that'll die off and it'll go into the soil or sand.
Yeah.
And it'll consume its
That's
waste.
right. It'll basically just break down, and that's just ensuring that it's got ongoing nutrients there, so it can survive. Yeah.
Now those little squiggly lines, is that an insect?
Yeah, that's what we call the scribbly gum moth, and the larvae of the moth emerge from the eggs and is able to just feed on some of the sap there. So the theory is with the zigzags is that it's actually looking for sweeter spots or more nutritious spots.
Really?
So it just kind of zigzags its way through.
Wow, excellent. Well, so far so good. But the world's biggest sand island? I don't know. Don't get me wrong. I mean, this has been great, but I was kind of expecting to see a little more sand. My God. Now that's more like it. This is what I call sand.
So, Ange, here we are.
Wow. That is spectacular.
And I guess if you were looking at trying to sum Fraser Island up, this is really what it's all about right here. If you have a look, I mean, we've got that big expanse of sand. It's sort of moving all the time. Every time the wind blows, it'll blow that sand across. So it takes a fair while for that exposed area really to become stabilised. But where it starts is down on the sides, and you can get a great example of that just on the other side of the lake there, where you can see the vegetation just starting to creep up the edge of the dune there. Of course, eventually, that will stabilise the whole dune there.
The whole thing will be covered?
Yeah.
What period of time are we talking?
Tens of thousands of years, 20, 30,000 years sometimes before it's totally covered.
That is incredible. Absolutely incredible. The amount of sand, I mean, this looks like, if you cut out the greenery around both sides, you could be in the middle of the Sahara.
That's right, yeah.
Ah,
Well, we finally made it to the top.
there it is.
There it is.
That is beautiful.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Woo! What kind of distance from here to the ocean?
Talking about another 2 kilometres roughly from here. So a bit over a mile.
I think I can see it just fine from here. I don't need to go any further.
No, that's right.
And now for something completely different. Oh look, more sand. Only this stuff is as hard as Chinese algebra. We're on what could be called the longest continuous drivable beach this side of Daytona. It's simply called 75 Mile Beach. One breathtaking vista after another. You might say this place is the ultimate eye candy store. Coming up, the Mahino wreck. Luxury liner turned hospital ship turned military target. Welcome back to 75 Mile Beach and my chauffeur-driven 4x4. Now tell me about this wreck that we're going to see.
Well, the Mahino was a ship that was built in 1905. It was built to do luxury cruises from New Zealand to Australia. So it used to run basically from Sydney to Auckland. And it was passing through this area in July 1935 when a freak storm hit up here. And it ended up ploughing up onto the beach in July 1935, and it's been here ever since. Well, it's pretty much wasted away now, but there's not a lot of it left. But 64 years in this sort of salt water conditions is not good for any vessel. When we get there, we'll be able to see what's left of it today.
Still a lot of very identifiable,
yeah, you can
parts.
You can see the bollards and things up there.
Yeah.
Still, the old decking. Yeah, a lot of it's sort of gone there now. But see that some of the timbers and things are still there. Yeah. But if you look at the front part here, you know, you can still see that it was a ship.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Everything's there. Wow.
Yeah, and here she is. Now it's just for tourists to take photos of.
That's an impressive looking sight. No matter how much time you set aside for your stay, it's never quite enough, and you never really see it all. And one of those things that I thought I'd miss, the dingo, Australia's wild dog. But, like they say, timing is everything. And on my way that evening to the ferry back to Hervey Bay, there he was, the Fraser Island dingo. What a bonus. Now, if Fraser Island is an apple, then our next destination is not just the tree, it's the whole orchard. We're off to North Queensland to visit one of the world's 8 wonders and often referred to as the largest living organism on the planet, the Great Barrier Reef. But first things first, this is the city of Cairns, the largest city in these parts, and for that matter, the only city in these parts. You see, North Queensland is very sparsely populated, and aside from a few small towns and villages, this is Mecca. With several world-class hotels, you soon forget just how isolated you really are. You know, one of the must-dos when visiting Australia is just to rent a vehicle and go out and explore it on your own. They've got great roads, really great people, and it's nice to know that there's still a country where it's safe to get out and drive. Just a lot of fun. What? Oh yeah, steering wheel's on the right, and you have to drive on the left. Left, stay to the left. One of the neat things that you'll find when you're driving here in Australia are these roundabouts. And they're basically a traffic circle that's designed to keep traffic moving without stopping it. It's a series of yields, and all you have to do is keep a lookout for the guy on the right, okay? Now the only problem with this is if you're not sure where you're getting off, it makes for a pretty wild time here. I gotta get off. Despite the beachfront esplanade, Cairns has quite the metropolitan atmosphere. All you've got is row after row of merchants and craftsmen. Here you can buy anything. I mean anything, both domestic and imported. I was equally surprised at the variety of tourists in this remote corner of the world, considering that it's primarily a dive destination. Each one of them is looking for that very special little something to bring back home that best exemplifies their trip down under. But by far the most unique keepsake in all of Australia is the didgeridoo.
I'm going to come in and try and play one. See if he gets it first time. That's it, nearly there. Oh.
I don't know. I don't think I should give up my day job, huh? Obviously, music wasn't my major back in school. For that matter, neither was anything else. Well, as you can see, it's pretty easy to get sidetracked in this very personable little city. And although they've done a great job of designing the ultimate tourist trap, its true personality is ever present as the greatest dive center this side of Key Largo. My appointment is with the main operators here, Tusa Dive Shop. Its reputation as the very best is worldwide. After a quick intro to my dive master for today's trip, Angela, who incidentally is the quintessential Aussie, if there is such a thing, it's full steam ahead and out to the Coral Sea. Our destination is Milne Reef, a couple of hours offshore. So this is where we are headed to?
We head to there, then we change course.
Okay.
And go to the next one along.
Okay. I've done a lot of diving in other parts of the world, but I understand that the Great Barrier Reef is definitely a special dive.
Yeah.
Is it mostly shallow water diving, or?
Yeah.
It is.
Doesn't really exceed 35 meters in the Great Barrier Reef. Of course, on the other side, it's a little bit deeper. About over 70% of smaller fish on the Great
70%.
Barrier Reef. Yeah.
And is it just going to be coral diving, or are we going to?
A few swim crews with large Gorgonian fans, and then we'll make our way up to the coral wall.
Coming up, every diver's dream, a plunge on the Great Barrier Reef. Welcome back. We're about 90 minutes out of the city of Cairns off the northeast coast of Australia, headed for a speck in the ocean called Milne Reef. This part of the Coral Sea is literally strewn with these tiny reefs. In fact, there's almost 3,000 of them in total. Well, here we are, Milne Reef. Now it's all hands on deck and a quick little orientation and another dose of the effervescent Angela. How does she manage to sound so pumped all the time? I mean, she's probably done this 100 times, and that's just this month.
Northern Point, and we call this site the Three Sisters. This is one of my favourite dive sites. You will enjoy it, guys. Down current, which is this pinnacle of coral, directly off the back of the boat, and that's called the First Sister. There is a second sister stretching out over to the left there, and around pretty well 180 degrees is our third sister out there. So as you can see, a few pinnacles of coral. I would recommend staying around this first pinnacle of coral. Anywhere around there is a beautiful place to dive. There is one swim through in near the center. At the back there, it's called Gorgonian Alley. Massive big Gorgonians, a small swim through cave that you can go through, which does make it a little bit exciting. So there's a lot to see. You don't have to go a long way at this particular site. Okay?
Ah, finally, to be able to tell all those cronies at the country club, yes, I too have been on the Great Barrier Reef. Here we go. Coral is among the oldest and most primitive forms of life, dating back at least 500 million years. Listed as one of Australia's 11 World Heritage Areas, the Great Barrier Reef is the largest living organism on Earth, at 2,000 kilometers or 1,250 miles in length, and covering an astounding 350,000 square kilometers or 153,000 square miles. For those of you keeping count, that's more than twice the size of the state of Florida. It's fascinating when you think of a coral reef as a living, breathing, growing thing, but that's exactly what it is. And here too, Mother Nature has once again outdone herself, supplying the Great Barrier Reef with over 2,000 species of tenants. Or, well, I mean fish. Of course, nowhere else on Earth are you apt to see such a diversity of life. Isn't nature grand? I mean, everywhere you turn, one wonderfully strange-looking critter after another. Some of these things I've never even heard of before, let alone seen. And of course, some I'm very familiar with, like these two fellas. All of a sudden I've got a bit of a hunger on. One of the truly unique forms of life on the reef, and certainly one of the most impressive creatures here, is the giant clam. Sadly, these huge bivalves are on the decline and have been placed on the protected list in hopes of giving them a fighting chance for survival. In fact, the entire coral reef has a very strict no hands-on policy. In other words, look, but don't touch. And this is Gregorian Alley. Now at first it might just look like a hole in a rock, but in fact it's one of the most exquisite Gregorian coral formations I've ever seen. Outstanding. If you ever get the notion to do something truly remarkable that'll burn an everlasting mark on your soul, I've just got 3 little words for you. Great Barrier Reef.